storyteller is also from Heart of Texas, Storytelling Guild. And her name is Barbara Bridgewater. She's got a couple of kids. She came from West Virginia. That's where she had two daughters. She heard about storytelling in West Virginia originally and comes to Texas. And I said, so what do you do for a living? She said, well, that's my story. So if y'all want to know what she does for a living, you got to pay attention like I'll have to. Barbara, come on up, please.
I am retired. Anyone out there retired? You may have some things to teach me. I've only been retired for 6 weeks. I wasn't retired when I decided to come to the conference. I wasn't yet retired when I went to Costa Rica for 5 weeks, and then I went out to California for a week, and I went on a cruise. That's all since December. I wasn't retired then. Even though I'm 66, I had no desire to retire. Ooh, that rhymes, doesn't it? I had no desire to retire. I loved my job. I miss my job. It's only been 6 weeks. Truth be told, I have 2 other jobs. I didn't retire from those. But the job I loved, I retired. The day I went in, I didn't know I was going to retire. And so it hit me hard. Retired. Now, my family and friends some of them have been retired for a while. And when they talked with me about retiring, they said, now, Barbara, it's okay to retire. There are some interesting things you can do when you retire. So let's see from the rest of you. So does anyone walk more since you retired? Okay, more than an hour a day? Okay, I don't want to walk more than an hour a day. I already walk an hour a day. Let's see, how many of you rest more? Do any of you rest more since you've been retired? Can't stand the thought of that. How about, are any of you having a little trouble financially since you retired? Anyone struggling with that at all? Okay, me neither. My husband and I live very simple lives. We're not wealthy, but we're fine. So I'm not afraid to retire. I'm just not sure what that looks like for me. For example, my friend Joe, he retired a couple years ago, and when we were talking, he said, oh, Barbara, I think you should retire. You can read so many more books. Do any of you read more books since you retired? Okay. I already read 2 to 3 books a week. Like last night after the conference, I went home and read about 100 pages, finished my 2nd book, so now I'm on my 3rd book. I said, when I retire, do I have to read 4 or 5 books a week? That doesn't sound good to me. Joe also said, well, you know, Barb, something you can do when you retire is you can take some naps in the afternoon. Does anyone like to take naps? I hate them. I have a hard time waking up once a day. I'm really grouchy. I'm glad I don't have a roommate for this conference because I am so grouchy when I wake up. My bones are all stiff. I've got some arthritis going on. Who wants to do it twice a day? I do not want to take a nap. But I retired 6 weeks ago. When I went in that morning, I did not know I was going to retire. I'm still trying to get over it. Once I retired 6 weeks ago, all of a sudden people started looking at me like I'm old now. I'm still the same age as 6 weeks ago chronologically, but now I'm old. And so my family and some of my friends have said, okay, Barbara, when you go for a walk, we now want you to wear one of those necklaces or one of those watch bands. Do any of you have those? Okay. Or a phone. We want you to take a phone with you. Okay, now let me tell you something about this. Vicki knows this about me. I'm one of the strangest creatures on the planet. I don't use a mobile phone. Now, I admit, I have this little phone that I have when I come to a conference like this, in case I need some help or in my car. It costs $100 a year. I don't use a mobile phone. So the thought that now, because I'm retired, I have to carry something on me so my family doesn't worry. I'm still not over that, and I haven't taken my phone yet, but we'll see. Retired. My husband, Philip, says, I have more energy when I return from my work than when I go. I have 3 jobs. One is I run our Airbnb, and another one is I teach a couple of classes, English as a second language. I still have those. It's the 3rd job I don't have. And my husband says, Barb, when you leave the house, especially in the morning, I'm so grouchy and I'm dragging, but by the time I come home, I have a lot of energy. So what's going to happen now? Will I not have any energy if I don't go into work and return at 10 o'clock at night? Retired. The job I retired from was working with the homeless population. I've done it for over 40 years. I've worked with families, individuals, people who can't speak English, people who can, older, younger people, young at heart, for 40 years. I've loved it. I started out working with the homeless on the border of El Paso and Juarez. Is anyone here from El Paso? I met someone. Yeah, there you go. Met someone in El Paso. And I worked on that border for 4 different summers. The 80s were full of a time when a lot of Central Americans were coming. In fact, when one of our speakers, Nestor, was talking about Guatemala, I thought again of those families. I learned during those 4 summers horrible, violent, awful stories. I also learned that the border control down there in El Paso disappeared at 7 in the morning and at 5:30 in the afternoon. Anyone know why? It was the hour of work, and they wanted people to come over at 7 in the morning to work in our homes and doing our landscaping and doing construction. And then they wanted them to go home at 5:30. I became a wetback that summer. My director offered us the opportunity. It was illegal to come across the Rio Grande, even if I was already an American citizen. But I wanted to experience what that was like. It was awful. I also learned the Border Patrol, who gets, I know, a lot of bad publicity, they dropped families off at the shelter I was at because they wanted someone to take care of them. So they brought them to us. We had over 100 people a night. But I retired from that. The next place found me in Appalachia, Ohio. Has anyone been in Appalachia? Anyone know anything about Appalachia? Okay. That's where I learned my first storytelling in West Virginia. But I was on the Ohio side. It was in a rural community. It was called Good Works. I learned at that homeless shelter that people, all people, needed a way to give, not just receive. You know, we're so used to helping people. We want to help people because it feels good, right? It feels really good to help others. And I learned that people without a home also needed to give. That was a surprise to me. So part of my work became, how can I help them give? More than providing a space, a home for them, they wanted to give. And that changed their lives. I met my husband there. We decided to stay in Appalachia for a long time. 6 years we were there. My daughter was born there. And we worked together and decided to do it the rest of our lives. I was 37 by the time I found someone who wanted to work with the homeless the rest of his life. I'm so glad. Then we came to Waco, Texas. Anyone been to Waco? Land of Chip and Joanna now. We love Waco. My husband got a job with Habitat for Humanity. Anyone know about Habitat? Okay. And he loved it. He loved helping the homeless, the people who didn't have their own home, buy their own home and get out of the cycle of poverty. That was exciting. I had a 2-year-old daughter at the time, but I said, let me find out who's helping the homeless in Waco, Texas. It wasn't hard for me to find. It was just a couple blocks down from my house. It's called Compassion Ministries. And I worked there for 25 years. That's the job I retired from. I missed them. I already missed them. It's been 6 weeks. I don't just miss the families that I worked with. I miss all the connections in the community that I had because I worked with them. I miss all the opportunities of connecting with other agencies and reading the newspaper really well and trying to figure out who's hiring and who's paying well and where the child care centers are. I miss all of that. I learned from the people in Compassion. I learned that they are some of the most resilient and strong people I have ever met. They came to our shelter in shock. They'd already slept on everyone's couch that they could have. They'd already tried all kinds of things, and they were desperate. And they came, and they were resilient. They were courageous to get out of that poverty cycle. One woman named Jessica, just such a dear person, came, stayed with us for a couple of years. She saved tons of money, saved much more money than I ever have, saved all her pennies, cleared up her credit. She bought her own home. She went from our shelter to her own home. She got her children back. She's now studying at a 4-year college, studying social work because she wants to give back. Why would I retire from those great stories? None of my friends have those great stories. I miss them. The reason I retired was my director, Amanda, talked with me the day I got back from Costa Rica. And we were talking about the program and how things are going and what's happening. And as we talked, I realized that Compassion needed to hire someone else, not me. Let me explain. I've worked at Compassion for 25 years, but part-time. I speak Spanish, so I worked with the Spanish speakers. I live about 3 blocks away from the shelter, so I could always walk there in emergency, especially in Waco. If it snows just a tad, everything shuts down, so I could walk there and open it all up. During COVID, I was able to go in every day and help from our residents cope, who now, of course, had lost all their jobs. But my director and I, as we talked, said, I need a full-time caseworker. And I said, I'm not your girl. And she said, I know, but I don't want to let you go. And as we both cried, I said, I have to go. It's time. I had said that every year for 25 years to my director. Whenever you need someone else, please hire them. Hire them. The residents deserve it. So that day I retired. Immediately, one of my friends said, Barb, when you retire, you can work on crossword puzzles or jigsaw puzzles. I hate crossword puzzles and jigsaw puzzles. I'm sorry for those of you that like it. I can't stand it. I did my share of jigsaw puzzles when COVID came. When COVID came, I did 10 pieces every night. to get some kind of control. I had read later that actually that really helps you when you're feeling totally out of control. And all of us during COVID, right? Totally out of control. So I would put my 10 pieces in every night. But then when we didn't have to be isolated anymore, when we had the vaccines, I haven't touched a piece since. Retired. My husband and I, we've been married 28 years, always worked with the homeless. Philip still is working with the homeless. I am not. We had agreed that all of our lives we would not live in the suburbs. We would live near the people that needed our help. We were crazy. My family testifies. We are crazy. But that was our commitment. We raised 2 girls. They came all the time to the shelter with us. They're gone now, living somewhere else. A friend of mine named Nathan said, "You know, Barb, that might be grounds for divorce. You aren't working anymore with the homeless." My husband said he'll still keep me. Who knows what retirement has for me? It's only been 6 weeks. Thankfully, I still teach a little. Thankfully, I still see some people in our Airbnb. I don't know what lays ahead for me. Next year, when I come to the storytelling convention, maybe I'll know. I'll let you know what's ahead for me. Retirement.